Have you ever been in the middle of something completely ordinary, talking, laughing, moving around the room, and suddenly noticed that the baby who had been babbling and wriggling and filling every corner of the space with sound and motion has gone completely, absolutely, almost unnervingly silent, their entire body stilled, their eyes fixed on something with an intensity so total and so focused that you find yourself stopping too, lowering your voice, holding your own breath a little, as if whatever has caught the baby's attention is something that the whole room needs to honor. And have you ever felt, in that strange suspended moment, that the baby was not absent but hyper-present, not switched off but switched all the way on, tuned into something on a frequency you could not quite access? That sudden, complete, mysterious silence is one of the most misunderstood behaviors in all of early infancy. And most people, even loving and attentive parents, interpret it incorrectly. They see the stillness and they wonder if something is wrong, if the baby has drifted away, if the quiet is emptiness, when in fact the opposite is true. When in fact that silence is among the most cognitively rich, neurologically intense, developmentally significant events that can happen inside a baby's day. And what is happening behind those wide, still, seemingly faraway eyes during those moments of sudden quiet is so extraordinary, so layered, and so quietly illuminating about the nature of the human mind itself that by the time the story is finished, you will never again be tempted to interrupt it. To understand why babies suddenly go quiet, you have to begin with a concept that sits at the very heart of how the infant brain develops, and that concept is called orienting. And orienting is not just paying attention, it is something older and more powerful than attention as adults experience it. It is a whole body, whole brain, evolutionarily ancient response to novelty that hijacks every other ongoing process in the nervous system and redirects everything, every resource, every circuit toward the new and potentially significant thing that has just appeared in the environment. The orienting response was first described by the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov, who noticed that animals and humans alike would freeze and shift their full sensory apparatus toward any stimulus that was new, unexpected, or potentially meaningful. And this freeze, this silence, this total withdrawal of energy from everything else in favor of the novel thing is not a passive event. It is an active one. It is the nervous system making a decision at the deepest level. This may matter. Everything else can wait. We are going in. And in a baby, whose entire world is essentially composed of novel things, whose every waking moment contains stimuli that have never been encountered before and therefore cannot be predicted or discounted by experience, this orienting response is not an occasional visitor. It is a dominant mode, a primary way of being in the world. And the sudden silences that parents notice throughout the day are often simply the visible surface of an orienting response that has been fully, completely triggered by something that the baby's developing brain has decided deserves every resource it has. Now, here is what makes this genuinely astonishing. When a baby orients and goes quiet, what is happening inside that stillness is not resting, it is the opposite of resting. Neuroscientists studying infant brain activity during these moments of behavioral silence have found that the brain is in a state of heightened activation, with attention networks firing intensely, with sensory processing operating at peak capacity, with circuits involved in memory encoding and pattern recognition, working at a rate and depth that the brain simply cannot sustain when it is also managing the constant motor output of movement, vocalization, and general wriggling. Which means the baby has not gone away. The baby has gone in, has redirected every available resource from the production of behavior toward the consumption of information. And what looks like stillness from the outside is, from the inside, something closer to a storm. Think about the last time you encountered something that genuinely stopped you. A view from a hilltop, a piece of music that arrived at exactly the right moment, a sentence in a book that seemed to have been written specifically for you. And remember how your body went still in that moment, how the background noise of your own thoughts went quiet, how you were for a few seconds not producing anything but simply receiving, pouring yourself entirely into the experience. That is approximately what a baby is doing every time they suddenly go silent, except that for the baby, it happens with a depth and a totality that adults can rarely reach because the baby has not yet built the mental chatter, the internal commentary, the layer of interpretation that sits between adults and raw experience. And so when the baby goes in, they go all the way in, with nothing in reserve and nothing held back. What are the things that trigger this response most powerfully? The research is fascinating and not always what you would expect, because it is not necessarily the loudest or the brightest or the most obviously stimulating things that send a baby into their deepest silences. In fact, some of the most powerful triggers of the infant orienting response are surprisingly subtle. A new voice speaking in an unfamiliar rhythm, a shadow moving at the periphery of the visual field, a shift in the quality of the light in the room, a sound that is almost familiar but not quite, a face that is doing something it has not done before. In other words, the things that trigger the deepest stillness are often the things that are close to the edge of the baby's current model of the world, the things that are almost known but not yet known, that sit right at the frontier of what the baby has already processed and categorized and understood, because that frontier is where learning happens and the brain knows it and responds to it with everything it has. Researchers studying infant attention have actually found that babies are bored by things that are too familiar and overwhelmed by things that are too novel, and that they show their deepest, most sustained quiet attention for things that fall in a sweet spot of complexity, things that are recognizably connected to what they already know, but that contain something new, something unexpected, something that requires the existing model to expand rather than simply confirm itself. And this means that the baby who goes suddenly silent while staring at the sunlight moving across the ceiling is not staring at nothing. They are working at something. They are at the edge of their current understanding of how light behaves, and the silence is the sound of that understanding growing. Here is the first twist that most people never consider. The silence is not always triggered by external events at all. Developmental neuroscientists have documented a phenomenon in infants sometimes called internal processing pauses, moments when the baby withdraws from the external environment, not because something new has appeared in it, but because the brain needs a window of reduced external input in order to consolidate something it has already received, to integrate a piece of new information into the existing structure of what the baby knows, to essentially file and connect and make sense of experience that has been accumulating. And these internal pauses, which look from the outside exactly like the baby spacing out or going quiet for no reason, are actually a form of active memory consolidation happening in real time. The infant equivalent of the moment when you put down a complicated book and stare at the wall for a moment, not because you have lost interest, but because you need the space to let what you have just read settle into place. This means that some of the quietest moments a baby has are also the moments when the most significant cognitive work is being done, when new connections are being formed between previously unconnected pieces of experience, when the map of the world inside the baby's brain is being quietly redrawn to accommodate something it did not have room for before. And the silence is not an absence of activity, it is the activity, it is the process itself made briefly visible as a stillness on the surface. Here is the second twist, and this one touches something much older than neuroscience. The sudden silence of a baby is also in many cases a social act. And this is the part of the story that changes how you understand what is happening between you and a baby during those quiet moments, because attachment researchers studying the moment-to-moment flow of interaction between babies and caregivers, have noticed that babies use withdrawal and silence not only to process the external world, but to manage the emotional intensity of the relationship itself, to take small regulated breaks from the high-stimulation experience of human connection, to lower the arousal level that builds during periods of intense engagement and bring themselves back to a baseline from which they can re-engage. And this is sometimes called the engagement-disengagement cycle. And it is one of the most important rhythms in early social development, the oscillation between reaching toward connection and pulling briefly back from it, between the full-on intensity of being met by another person and the quieter, more inward space of processing what that meeting felt like. What this means is that when a baby who has been playing happily with you suddenly looks away and goes still and seems to have left the conversation, they have not rejected you, they have not lost interest, they have not gone somewhere you cannot follow. They are regulating. They are managing the beautiful and overwhelming experience of being in relationship with you. They are doing the emotional equivalent of taking a breath and the correct response, the response that supports the baby's developing capacity for self-regulation and signals that you understand the rhythm they are in, is to simply wait, to hold the space, to resist the urge to pull the baby back into engagement before they are ready, and to trust that the silence is part of the connection rather than a break from it. There is something in all of this that speaks very directly to the way we as a culture relate to silence in general, because silence makes most adults deeply uncomfortable in a way that reveals something about how thoroughly we have been trained to equate productivity with noise, presence with output, engagement with stimulation. We fill silences instinctively, reflexively, almost compulsively, with words and music and movement and distraction, as if silence itself were a problem to be solved rather than a condition to be inhabited. And yet, here is a baby, at the very beginning of a human life, demonstrating with great natural authority that some of the most important things that happen in a mind happen in the quiet. That processing requires stillness, that integration requires pause, that the full reception of experience sometimes demands a temporary suspension of its production. And watching a baby suddenly go quiet and holding that space rather than filling it is one of the small but genuinely profound practices that early parenthood can offer. A reminder from the newest and in some ways the wisest person in the room that not everything that matters makes a sound, that some of the most significant events in a mind are invisible and silent and entirely interior, and that the space between the noises is not empty but full, not a gap in the story but part of it, not an ending but a breath before the next beginning. So the next time a baby in your life goes suddenly quiet, when the room shifts and the stillness arrives, and you feel that particular quality of suspended attention that seems to ask the whole world to pause with it, let it be, hold the quiet. Do not rush to fill it, because something is happening in there that is larger than it looks. Something is being received, connected, consolidated, felt, and the silence is not the baby going away. It is the baby going deeper, going further into the extraordinary private interior of a mind that is growing so fast and learning so much and taking in so much of the world all at once that sometimes, just sometimes, it needs to stop making sound in order to keep making sense. And that capacity, the capacity to go quiet when the world is too full, to turn inward when the outward is overwhelming, to pause in order to truly absorb rather than merely receive. That is not a baby behavior. That is a human gift, present from the very first weeks of life, waiting to be understood, waiting to be honored, waiting for the people around it to be still enough to recognize it for what it is. Subscribe for more Mind Secrets.